An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older and know what time it is know it's just business.
Yeah. Greetings and welcome back. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We've been covering Aryan Brotherhood members over the past 6 decades or so. Today, we'll continue with the C last names, as in C file. Speaking of C files, I've read a lot of them. I had to do this by memory, but I always tried to write down important details. I've also been privy to access to confidential Bureau prison files, and some of that information is included here in this video. I'm always very careful when retelling these stories that I don't jeopardize anybody's safety and security. Much of this information can be verified online if you know where to look. I'll start off with Michael Chip Cheek, who's out of Feather Falls, California. He was an Aryan Brotherhood member in the 1980s with C numbers in Charles, 21955. I actually had Michael Cheeks on my yard at New Folsom in 1988. At Seep facility, which was considered to be a soft yard. I recall that a lot of guys didn't like him because they knew he had testified against the AB in a case that I'll talk about in just a minute involving Bobby Ray Shields and Dwayne Grumpy Christensen. And for this testimony, Cheek was placed high on the hit list. I understand that he was eventually rolled by at least the year 2000 and disappeared from the radar. In regards to that case I was talking about, Dwayne Grumpy Christensen was out of Santa Ana in Orange County. He was an Aryan Brotherhood member in the early 1980s at San Quentin with C number 2429. I believe while he was housed at Folsom with Bobby Ray Shields on orders of Blue Norris, they both gutted an inmate in order to retrieve drugs inside his body. And as I stated, Michael Cheeks described on video how they did this. Evidently, the guy had gone to visiting and they knew he was holding drugs, and they didn't want to wait for him to pass it through his bowels. So they gutted him for it. I know that's pretty extreme. So I'm pretty sure that that guy had other issues as well with the ABs. Understand then he was housed at Tehachapi SHU in 1988 and remained at Tehachapi for many years. There is Timothy, a.k.a. Timmy Clark, out of San Diego, who was a former Aryan Brotherhood hitman under B number 61294. I remember Timmy very well because he was part of my dining room crew too. I worked various jobs from 1987 through 1993 at New Folsom. The way it works is you bid for position. One year I bid for the dining room. I moved around every year to a different position. And in my first year, 1987, I worked all over the place, which is common for new fish cops on orientation. I wanted to be able to work anywhere they assigned me and know at least a little bit about what I was doing. And so I could confidently say I could work almost anywhere that they put me. I remember Timmy being very much tattooed, and he had a teardrop tattoo, which usually signifies a murder. However, come to think of it, I don't think I ever pulled a C file to verify that. But I know that he was very much respected, even though he was considered a dropout. There was Francis Clement, who was out of Sacramento. Understand that he was housed in the Youth Authority in 1984 for a homicide. He then was transferred to the adult system in the mid-1980s with G number 7919. I show that he was housed at Pelican Bay in the early 1990s and was found with multiple shanks as well as kites containing Aryan Brotherhood codes. He then was let out of the SHU when many of these guys were cut loose due to the Todd Ashker lawsuit, and understand that he pretty much ran Kern Valley State Prison, as well as many parts of Kern County and Fresno County on the outs, and is mentioned several times in the most recent RICO case, which includes the double homicide I mentioned earlier, carried out on March 8, 2022 in Pomona, California. And I currently show Clement was still housed at Kern Valley State Prison. I show a Troy Clowers out of Fresno County, who was part of that Aryan Brotherhood President case in 2020. He was assigned B numbers in Bravo, L is in Lima, 2275. And I show was housed at Pleasant Valley State Prison in the year 2020. But I show currently is not in custody. There was Kenneth Hogjaw Cochran, well, I believe was out of Orange County. I show that he was a former Aryan Brotherhood member in the mid-1970s and was murdered by New York Crane in December of 1977. Hogja's body was found in Huntington Beach State Park and had been shot in the back, and both of his kneecaps were blown off. I'll briefly mention Jason Michael Cummings, aka Powder, was out of Lake Elsinore. He was a very active P9 member with F numbers in Frank, 55737. This guy has appeared multiple times on another channel that I won't mention. And I notice that many people state he's a good storyteller. But like a lot of these guys, it seems to me that he often exaggerates. According to him, he was an Aryan Brotherhood associate and was at CIM's Palm Hall in the year 2003 to 2004. I did verify that he was housed at Corcoran Shoe at one time and claims to be close to Weddell Green Eyes of the inmate while he was housed there. I show that he was housed at High Desert State Prison in the year 2011 on Sea Yard and engaged in several battles with the whites against the Norteños there. But evidently, he ran afoul of the AB as he was hit several times. In listening to Powder, it seems to me like he still wishes he could be in good with Aryan Brotherhood. But like I said, tends to exaggerate his stories and also talk about things that he probably shouldn't be talking about. Thus, I understand got in trouble with Aryan Brotherhood shot caller Ronnie Renegade Yandel. And I believe there's at least one video where he even apologizes to Renegade for doing that, which evidently Renegade felt hurt his current RICO case. I show that Jason Michael Cummings is currently housed at the Tehachapi. There is Kenneth Kenny Como out of Pasadena. I show that he was locked up in the Youth Authority in the late 1950s and then incarcerated in CDC in the 1960s under A number as an Apple 62308. I then show he was let out on that, but came back under B number 33721 and became involved with the Manson family during the 1970s. Kenny Como was involved with 5 other Manson family members, including his wife, Catherine Gypsy Scher, Mary Bruner, who was one of Manson's first followers, and several other Manson family members. Police said that they all burst into a surplus store in Hawthorne, California, located just southwest of Los Angeles, and that they stacked approximately 100 weapons in a van. Police agencies from surrounding agencies, some armed with shotguns, then engaged in an almost half-hour gun battle with the Manson family. Kenneth Como was considered to be Aryan Brotherhood and actually got into a dispute later on with Charlie Manson. Many of the other Aryan Brotherhood members were upset with some of the tactics that the Manson family engaged in particular, the killing of Sharon Tate and her unborn baby. The Aryan Brotherhood usually had a policy that killing women and children was a no-no. There was Robert Conley, who was involved with the Aryan Brotherhood at Washington State at McNeil Island. I show he had BOP number 365544-136. While he was at McNeil, he and Jimmy McDonald were involved in a murder. And I understand that Edgar Snell Hebley assisted in this. For that hit, Conley was made Aryan Brotherhood. The hit was supposedly ordered by Daniel Kavanaugh. There was Jason Corbett, who I think was out of Chico in Northern California. I show that he was an Aryan Brotherhood member with CDC number K as in kite. 93732. Understand that he was involved in the murdering of an inmate named Maynard in October 2016 at High Desert State Prison, and was also involved with Pat Brady in the murder of an inmate named Pequeen in the summer 2018 at High Desert State Prison. I show that he was housed at Soledad in 2019 when he was hit with that RICO case, and I show he's currently housed at New Folsom State Prison. There was Kenny Costa. I remember this individual very well. As I understand, Kenny Costa and another inmate named William Billy Schuler stabbed Cornfed. I was working the day this happened, and I remember Cornfed, who was known for being a very dangerous hitman for the AB, was very shocked that they had done this. As I recall, Cornfed had been writing Billy Schuler's sister and was told to cease and desist. but he didn't. And so Billy and Kenny hit him out on the yard. They both also were known as being very dangerous. However, Cornfed had the political juice and had them both later crossed out. And as the story usually goes, eventually Cornfed fell out of favor also. They continued to bring this beef up to Pelican Bay State Prison when they were all housed there. And you can find a court case online involving former Pelican Bay guard Jose Ramon Garcia that mentions Kenny Costa and Cornfed in the case that he was convicted on for setting up an inmate who was serving time for child molestation. There was a Spider Craig who was affiliated with the AB under A numbers in Alpha 60670. And he also was affiliated with some of the Manson girls, sometimes called the Aryan Sisterhood, and is mentioned in the case of the triple homicide of the Willett family. There was Robert, a.k.a. Bobby, a.k.a. New York Crane, who I understand was originally from New York, but had moved to Orange County as a young man. Then showed that he was incarcerated at the California Rehabilitation Center in Norco in 1970, but evidently failed that program and was given B number 29776. Understand he paroled in 1970, but came back on a new charge and was given B number 31488. Then showed that he was released on that in the mid-1970s, but got popped for robberies. In 1977, New York Crane and AB member David Owens robbed a Bank of America, netting approximately $9,000. Owens was convicted of that bank robbery and sent to the BOP. Crane was then housed in California after he took a plea deal. Meanwhile, Crane was held in Orange County Jail for the death of ex-con Kenneth Hogjaw Cochran that I mentioned earlier. Crane ended up pleading guilty to first-degree murder in December 1977. Prior to making his plea, Crane was already serving a life prison term for the 1979 murder of Wayne Golan, a jewelry store owner in Seal Beach, California, but avoided the death penalty by pleading guilty on the Cochran case. New York was sent back to Folsom Prison, where he was a fixture for many years and sat on the AB Commission, along with Blinky Griffin and Blue Norris. New York was also said to be very close to Mexican Mafia hitman Mo Farrell before Farrell was killed in the mid-1980s at Folsom. Understand that New York became very depressed over his situation and over Aryan Brotherhood politics, and is said to have committed suicide in 1999. There was Johnny Crawford out of Fresno. I show that he was locked up in the Youth Authority in 1984, but had paroled by 1985. I show he was arrested in Reno in 1986 and arrested back in California for theft of a motor vehicle in 1989, where he's given E number as an Edward 11049. I then show he was picked up by the feds and given BOP number 55891-097. I show he was housed at Lompoc in 1993 and I think was moved to Marion later on, but had been released by July of 2019. There was a Ronnie Joe Criswell, who is said to have been involved in the murder of Rhino Andreessen, who I covered in the very first episode. After his conviction of a bank robbery, Rhino was sent to USP Leavenworth, where he was bludgeoned and stabbed to death by John Grishner and Ronnie Joe Criswell. Now, I've heard various reasons why Rhino was hit. One source states that he had been trying to muscle in on a racket they had going. Another person said that it was found out that Rhino had given information on his brothers, in particular, Barry the Red Baron Mills, that Rhino had given information on the brothers concerning a 1975 robbery conducted by the AB in Anaheim, California, a robbery where Rhino was said to be the getaway driver. It is stated that the Aryan Brotherhood Commission received a transcript that included Anderson's interview with the Westminster police located near Anaheim. I also heard that he burned Barry the Red Baron Mills. I think there was various reasons why Rhino was killed. I also forgot to mention that Rose, who hit Rhino in the Orange County Jail and failed, soon dropped out. What happens a lot of times is if they give you a mission and you fail, you're put on the hit list. Thus, failure is not an option. The Rhino Anderson case was mentioned during the AB RICO trials, and in 2007, Robert Blinky Griffin was convicted of conspiring to murder him and other Aryan Brotherhood members that were in bad standings. There was Fred Casper Crow, who I show had ties to Riverside as well as Orange County. I'm under the impression that Casper was at a house near Palm Springs, California, when a woman was brutally attacked. Supposedly, this woman was terminally ill with cancer, and Casper ordered her attacker to stop. Since he did not, Casper states that he shot him once. The assailant survived to reattack the same woman with an axe handle and handgun later, and went on to kill a 16-year-old girl in a car accident while driving drunk. For that shooting, Casper was sentenced to 6 years on assault charge. But due to the implementation of a 3 strikes law, he ended up serving consecutive life sentences. He then went on to do 20 years in prison. He legally had changed his name to Odin's son. Odin is the god in German and Nordic mythology, also addressed as Woden by the Saxons and multiple other European pagan religions as being the number one god, and in Viking religion ruled Valhalla. Odin had many sons, including the Norse god Thor. So basically, Caspar Krall was saying that he was a son of Odin, and his body was adorned with ancient runic writings. He ended up creating his own nonprofit organization, the Holy Nation of Odin Incorporated, and sold merchandise and promoted his case online. He was interviewed for a National Geographic channel and has appeared on multiple other channels, such as Sean Atwood's channel. Here's a little excerpt of him talking about the Aryan Brotherhood in prison.
When you get a yard, you're given the keys to a yard. Everybody was in the shoe. So they had guys that come through the hole that had been in their cell, their cellies or whatever. Like say a guy was with his brother and he was considered a stand-up guy. They would give him the keys to the yard that he went back out to run the general population. Or if he's just going back to regular ad seg, they give him the keys to that. The brand is running the yard. They're on the yard and they give you the keys, but you really don't have the keys. What it is you have control of the decisions that have to be meted out on the yard. People have a problem, they come to you. Something has to be done. They tell you this has to be done. Make it happen. Make it so. Make it happen the next yard. That's your responsibility to do that.
Now, it's kind of interesting to me. I hear some people state that Caspar Krall was not an Aryan Brotherhood member. However, he states he was, and states that he even engaged in combat with Aryan Brotherhood's traditional enemy, the Nuestra Familia, at Corcoran State Prison. He also has the Shamrock, which, as I stated, you cannot have in California prison without being an Aryan Brotherhood member. However, understand that John Greshner stated that he was not an Aryan Brotherhood member. I'm not sure how John Greshner would know that because John Greshner dropped out long before Krall dropped out. Evidently, Dr. Caspar Odinson Krall felt that the Aryan Brotherhood wasn't pure enough for him. He also created another website called Vinland Folk Resistance that extolled the virtues of Odinism and white pride. On that website, he praised former Silent Brotherhood leader David Lane, who is famous for the 14 words: "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." I'm not an Odinist expert, but my understanding is that it is more a racist variant of the Norse pagan religion known as Asatru. Asatru in itself is not considered to be a racist religion, although some white supremacists do consider themselves to be followers of Asatru. But most white supremacists, including Aryan Brotherhood members and other Aryans in prison that I've encountered, usually call themselves Odinists. These groups often learn how to write in runes, and a good book on all this was written by my good friend, David Schilling. Today we have a guest who has a special skill set. I wish I knew about him when I worked at Folsom Prison back in the late 1980s, early 90s, when the Aryan Brotherhood was passing secret messages in runes. It is my pleasure to introduce David Schilling. Where can people find that?
I'll go. You can find it on Amazon. I think everyone can see that without the glare. Norse Germanic runes and symbols.
I always try to stay humble and not get too cocky. Again, I don't know it all, but think I have a pretty good handle on the brand. I haven't just read books about them or researched them online. I've actually sat down and interviewed multiple Aryan Brotherhood members. I worked in the Violence Control Unit with active AB members and dealt with them at B Facility, B1 in particular at New Folsom. And my first 2 escorts on the job were AB General Blue Norris and his bodyguard and cellie, Ox Rufo, when we escorted them from C Facility over to B Facility when it first opened up. And I've directly dealt with many of the heavyweights in that prison gang. I will give you some more interesting details on them and others later on in this series. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard so far and continue supporting this channel. Make sure you tell your friends and don't forget to like and subscribe. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for gangsters, cops, and politicians. An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brother still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am, and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older know what time it is now. It's just business.
Yeah.